What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi with a brand new deck profile video. This time I'll be showing you the changes and updates to my Mekk-Knight deck. Mekk-Knight's received a couple of new cards in the last couple of sets that gave its abilities a really bizarre change. And thanks to those changes, the deck has gone from being a random spam build designed to just continuously summon itself to a system that basically abuses the pseudo-win condition the field spell offers. And you'll see what I mean when I get into it. Now, before I go into the profile itself, I do want to give a quick shout out to Rodney Furman. Thanks to his generous donation, I was actually able to complete this deck. Rodney, I thank you. You have been one of the most generous people that I have ever met, and I am more than happy to be your friend and have you in my server. Let me show you what I got. Starting off with the monster lineup, we have a play set of Mekk-Knight Avram, the newest main deck monster. He is one of the reasons this deck's flexibility has changed so much, because adding a normal summon monster with 2,000 attack points from the base is astounding for this deck that was basically only using special summons up to this point. Though I am still upset about the flavor text change, because that's just, well, for lack of a better term, it's tasteless. Then we have Mekk-Knight Blue Sky, one of the two main searchers of the deck. Now, every Mekk-Knight monster shares a common effect, being that they can be special summoned, hard once per turn, into a column that has two cards in the same column already. Blue Sky's unique effect says that if he's special summoned from the hand, you can add Mekk-Knight monsters from your deck to your hand up to the number of cards in your opponent's half of the column. So with this one card, you could see a plus of upwards of 3 monsters. Now moving into the 6 stars, we have Green Horizon. I'm actually starting to realize he's a lot more useful than I initially put out, but he is a little codependent on battling to be of use. If he battles a monster in the same column, you can take any Mekk-Knight monster in your graveyard and put it back in your hand. Though I will admit, Orange Sunset hasn't changed much. If a card in the same column is removed from the field or destroyed by battle, then he special summons any Mekk-Knight monster from my hand. It's not that he's really useless or anything, and 3,000 defense is kinda hard to get over, especially in a 6-star monster, but he's so situationally useful he's almost not playable beyond being discard fodder, or link material. 2 Mekk-Knight Red Moon. By banishing a Mekk-Knight monster from the graveyard, he can destroy a monster in the same column as him. Mekk-Knight Yellow Star. Same thing, except it does Spell Trap in the same column. Indigo Eclipse is the screwiest member of this archetype. During either player's turn, he can target a Mekk-Knight monster on the field and move it into an open zone in a different column. And then Mekk-Knight's Purple Nightfall, the other resource monster in this deck. During either player's turn, he can target a face-up Mekk-Knight monster, banish it, and if he does, I can add any Mekk-Knight monster from my deck to my hand. Traditionally, you'll be banishing Purple Nightfall to add Blue Sky to your hand, summoning Blue Sky, and then getting a bunch of other cards. Next up, we have the spell cards. Starting with a single copy of Dark Hole, since I tend to banish my monsters more than anything, and the main extra deck monster that matters in this tends to be immune to disruption from card effects, this card really doesn't hurt me that much. 1 copy of Monster Reborn, of course, purely because it's Monster Reborn. A pair of MSTs, and 2 Terraforming, because the field spell's at 3. What more do I need to say? Next we get into the World Legacy cards, the cards that make this deck so powerful. Starting with World Legacy Key. When you activate it, you target a banished Mekk-Knight monster and put it in your hand. But as long as it's face up, any trap card your opponent activates, any column that has a Mekk-Knight monster in it, has its effects negated. But that only applies to cards with activating effects. Continuous ones are fine. Then we have World Legacy Scars. All Mekk-Knight monsters on the field gain 300 attack and defense. Once per turn, you can discard a Mekk-Knight or World Legacy card from your hand to draw a card. And here's the bad one. You can banish 8 Mekk-Knight monsters with different names from your graveyard and or face up from your field, and your opponent loses their hand and extra deck, sending both straight to the graveyard. And then finally we have World Legacy's Memory, another new card that we were given. It special summons a Mekk-Knight monster from your hand or deck in defense, but it goes to the hand during the end phase of the turn it was activated. And for the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters except Mekk-Knights. Which is perfectly fine, because since this deck's pure Mekk-Knight, I have nothing to worry about. And then next we have the trap cards. Starting with a pair of Bottomless Trap Hole. Solemn Warning, which is just a staple. 2 World Legacy Whispers. When it's activated, you can target a level 5 or higher monster and give it 1,000 attack and defense points until the end of the turn. And while it's face up, it negates spell cards that are activated by the opponent in the same column as a Mekk-Knight monster. And then finally, a playset of World Legacy Secrets. When it's activated, you target a level 5 or higher monster in your graveyard and special summon it, but when this card leaves the field, that monster is destroyed, but not the other way around. And while it's face up, you negate any of opponent's monster effect that activates in the same column as a Mekk-Knight monster you control. Next, we move into the side deck. Starting off with a spare copy of red, a spare copy of yellow, a spare MST, a spare terraforming, spare World Legacy Key, spare World Legacy Whispers, compulsory, and I'm so happy it finally went back to 3, this card is hilarious, double Fiendish Chain in the event that I need more negation, triple Gozen Match, which locks both players into only controlling one attribute of monster at a time, and since this deck is pure light attribute, this card does nothing to me. Mirror Force, and 2 Torrential Tribute, in the event that I change my mind or I face an opponent where indiscriminate field nuking is more valuable than resource pieces. And now we finish up with the very small extra deck. First up, we have the playset of Mekk-Knight of the Morning Star. This card was the card that was generously donated by Rodney Furman, and thanks to him I was able to get this deck a bit farther along than I expected to be. If he's Link summoned, you can discard a Mekk-Knight or World Legacy card and add any World Legacy card from your deck to your hand. And if your Mekk-Knight monsters battle an opponent's monster in a different column, you don't take battle damage and your monsters are not destroyed by that battle. Then of course we also have Mekk-Knight Spectrum Supreme. He can attack directly if there's no cards in the same column, and if this card in the extra deck monster zone has no monsters in its linked zones, it cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, and you can send a card that's in the same column as this card to the graveyard to special summon a Mekk-Knight monster from your deck in defense mode. And that is the deck. The evolution of the Mekk-Knight archetype is definitely a weird one, starting out as nothing but a special summoning system that just constantly added new copies of itself and its brethren to your hand in large numbers for the sake of one boss. But thanks to the inclusion of nothing more than this spell card and the new Link 2 monster, this deck can search everything so fluidly that it's honestly a wonder that the deck hasn't been hit on some ban list. But that could just be my opinion. But as a whole, I still think the deck's mechanics are for the most part fair, as even though it does have the potential to lock out certain effects in certain zones on the field, it still allows you to play. You just have to play around the zones that they've locked out, and you can still technically win. And even though right now more people are playing the deck as a mixed system, I still invite anybody to play this deck as a pure variant and see just how interesting and fun it can be. I thank you guys for watching this deck profile, and if you think of any improvements I can make to this Mekk-Knight deck, feel free to let me know. In the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.